Let's begin with the foundations. Welcome to another lecture. Our subject today is the 2026 film Buddy, a work of supernatural fantasy, comedy, horror, slasher. Yes, all of those words, directed by Casper Kelly and co-written with Jamie King. Hello, I am Professor Alexei.
Hello, I'm Priyanka. I'm Professor Alexei's teaching assistant. Thanks for listening with us today. Professor, may I ask something simple first? In lay terms, what is Buddy?
I guess we can say it is a film set inside a 1990s-style children's television show. A bright orange unicorn host, named Buddy, invites kids to play and learn. Then one child refuses to play along, and the host becomes malevolent. The show world turns from cheerful to nightmarish, and a mother searching for her missing daughter is pulled into that world.
Precisely. To define it technically, Buddy is a hybrid of supernatural, fantasy, comedy, horror, and slasher modes that employs a meta-television frame to critique media rituals of enforced cheer and conformity. It leverages suitmation and puppetry to emulate 1990s live-action educational programming. Keegan-Michael Key voices the unicorn Buddy, while distinct in-suit performers, Sergei Zhuravsky for Buddy and Jonathan Yurko for Dark Buddy, embody physical presence. It's crucial to understand a few terms. By midnight section, we refer to Sundance's late-night slate for audacious genre cinema. Principal photography denotes the main shooting period. An in-suit performer inhabits a character costume, while a separate actor may supply the voice. These are not just production trivia. They are part of how the film constructs a tactile, inviting surface that can then be subverted. Why does this matter now? Let's unpack that. In this context, the film stages a parable about how media can channel behavior through participation cues. Call and response, smiling compliance. We observe a system that appears caring but sanctions refusal. In a digital era saturated with interfaces that reward engagement and punish disengagement, this metaphor is uncomfortably contemporary.
Historically, many people have treated children's shows as purely benign. Buddy argues that even gentle structures can carry hidden mechanisms of control. It makes me wonder how often we confuse tone with ethics. Bright colors do not guarantee kind intentions. Some quick facts. First, Buddy really blurs genre lines. It combines horror, comedy, and fantasy inside a kids' TV aesthetic, with practical suits and talking objects that feel familiar until they don't. Second, Keegan-Michael Key voices Buddy the Unicorn. His warmth turns threatening when the mask slips, and that tonal whiplash is the point.
Two key dates anchor the timeline. July 2025, when principal photography began, with Kristen Milioti announced as the lead playing Grace, the mother drawn into the show's labyrinth while searching for her daughter Freddie, played by Delaney Quinn. And January 2026, when Buddy premiered in the midnight section of the Sundance Film Festival in Utah. Subsequently, Roadside Attractions and Saban Films acquired North American rights in April 2026, and the U.S. theatrical release, initially set for September 2026, was moved up to August 2026. The shift, arguably, signals confidence in word of mouth. It is worth noting the ensemble: Kristen Milioti as Grace, Delaney Quinn as Freddie, and Topher Grace as Ben. Within the show world, voices include Patton Oswalt as Strappy the Backpack, Michael Shannon as Willie the Ventriloquist Doll, Clint Howard as George, a howdy-doody-like cowboy puppet, and a chorus of anthropomorphic objects voiced by Eric Bauza. The production was mounted in Northeast Ohio, Brooklyn, Solon, and Burton, whose interiors double convincingly for studio sets. Before we get to the complexities, a personal note. As someone who studies how systems, whether mathematical, bureaucratic, or cultural, shape human behavior, I am drawn to Buddy's demonstration that the most powerful rules are often the ones wrapped in a song. It's important to understand that pedagogy can be a delivery mechanism for both care and control. The film stages that duality with unsettling clarity.
So, yeah, moving on. We wanted to frame three big questions. First, a historical question. Where did this idea of mixing children's media and horror come from? Second, a counterfactual. What if the child in the story had never refused to play along? Third, an open present-day question. How are films now continuing to challenge traditional media narratives? And what do we still not understand about how audiences process such blends? Building on that, Professor, may I ask the historical one first? What are the early inspirations for fusing kids' TV aesthetics with horror? We see Buddy referencing a Howdy Doody-like puppet and a ventriloquist doll. Why do those older forms map so easily onto modern fear?
To elaborate, early children's television relied heavily on puppetry and ventriloquism. These forms externalize voice and agency, creating a benign split between object and speaker. Historically, such artifacts carry what we might call an uncanny surplus. The smile is fixed, the voice is borrowed, and control is ambiguous. By invoking a Howdy Doody-like cowboy puppet in George and a ventriloquist doll in Willie, Buddy taps into a lineage where the trappings of instruction, sing-alongs, helper characters, classroom objects given speech, already sit 1 degree removed from organic human interaction. The horror arises when we allow the possibility that the smiling mechanism has its own agenda. The lesson plan becomes a trap. Mathematically, change the sign on intention while holding form constant, and comfort inverts to dread.
Professor, I'm curious about cultural impact. When we remix those mid-century and 1990s tropes today, do we get mere nostalgia, or does the remix actively critique our memory of safety?
Both impulses are present. Nostalgia is the honey, critique is the medicine. Buddy deliberately reconstructs the tactile comfort of foam suits and friendly mailboxes. Mr. Mailbox, worry well, couchy, trashy, pea flower, so that when violence or menace intrudes, we are forced to ask whether the original comfort concealed a disciplinary logic. In simpler terms, the remix teaches us to distrust our own rosy recollections, and that is the cultural work.
To shift gears a bit, the counterfactual. The plot hinges on a single refusal. A child does not play along. What if that refusal never happened? Would the show remain a cheerful loop forever, keeping the children, and even Grace, inside a safe-seeming routine?
We can infer that without refusal, the system continues unperturbed. The call and response pedagogy rewards conformity. Songs end on the expected note. The unicorn smiles. In game-theoretic terms, compliance is a stable equilibrium sustained by positive feedback. The threat is invisible because detection requires deviation. If no one defects, Dark Buddy need never appear. The lesson plan becomes a perpetual motion machine of soft coercion.
Professor, could you clarify the implications for the characters? Would Grace still enter the show world? And would the children even recognize they were trapped if the surface remained cheerful?
Arguably, yes. Grace's search for Freddy could still act as a bridge into the show's diegesis. But without refusal as catalyst, the antagonism remains diffuse, suspicion without proof. The children might never perceive captivity because the curriculum satisfies immediate incentives: attention, approval, belonging. The clear answer then is that refusal is the event that collapses the false front. It exposes enforcement mechanisms, Buddy's transformation, helper archetypes turned monitors, and thereby initiates the possibility of escape.
What comes to mind next is the present-day question. How are films continuing to challenge traditional media narratives? And where does Buddy fit? We see practical suits, voice and in-suit splits, and a festival pathway through Sundance's midnight section. Is this a broader pattern?
Speaking of patterns, we observe a convergence where independent financing enables high-concept blends that use tactile craft to anchor surreal premises. Buddy exemplifies this. Boulder Light Pictures and Low Spark Films assemble resources. The production favors practical effects to achieve a 1990s texture. Recognizable voices, Keegan-Michael Key, Michael Shannon, Patton Oswalt, provide tonal elasticity. Sundance's midnight section confers a seal for adventurous audiences, and roadside attractions and Saban films then platform to late summer theaters, advancing the release to August 2026. The challenge is to balance tonal oscillation, humor, horror, tenderness, without losing narrative coherence. Buddy's ensemble helps stabilize that oscillation.
Professor Alexei, may I ask about future directions? Where might media critique in film go next, especially with kids' TV aesthetics now thoroughly subverted? Is there a research gap we should pay attention to?
This logically leads us to audience cognition. We need more systematic study of the psychological effects of mixed-genre media on viewers. How rapid shifts from comfort to menace modulate attention, empathy, and memory. Additionally, there is an open question about ethical design. When filmmakers weaponize nostalgia, what responsibility do they bear for reactivating childhood scripts? Finally, as platforms fragment, we may see works that treat the interface itself as character. Buddy already hints at this by turning helper objects into enforcers. In conclusion, the frontier is not only what stories we tell, but how the formal scaffolding of those stories governs our behavior while we watch.
So, I guess that kind of sums it up. Buddy is a 2026 Sundance Midnight selection, where a cheerful 1990s-style show becomes a trap. A unicorn host, voiced by Keegan-Michael Key, curdles from friendly to frightening, and a mother, played by Kristen Milotti, searches for her daughter inside that trap. Today we asked three big questions. Historically, how kids' media and horror intertwine? Counterfactually, what happens if no one refuses to play? And presently, how hybrid films challenge media norms while leaving open research on audience effects.
To summarize, if you wish to extend this inquiry, study the evolution of children's television from early puppet-led programs through the 1990s educational formats. The production grammar you find there is the grammar Buddy subverts. Thank you for joining us today. Your attention is, as ever, appreciated.
Thank you, Professor, and thanks to everyone listening. See you next time.